All right. Greetings, folks. We are live for the viewer tournaments, which only start in half an hour. And while waiting for them to kick off, we've got Gukesh here. Woo! Gookie. Playing against another one of his seconds here at Wake on Zay. He already beat Vincent Kamer earlier. So he's definitely happy to have his seconds at this tournament so far because his position is looking very good today. And he hasn't won a ton of games yet this tournament other than against his seconds, you know? So, no, I don't think they're throwing the games to him. Of course not. Don't even suggest it. Cutting you off in advance. There's no way. Rook d7. Okay, so let me just show like a little bit about what's going on in this position because I've been watching for a couple minutes while I was setting up my... Actually, I've been watching for a while while setting up and watching the kids and stuff. Okay, but we got to this position here. In this position, Black's almost dead. And Gukesh had like 7 minutes on the clock and couldn't find... you know, like a clean checkmate, knockout, whatever you want to call it, here. And he played queen f7 check and then used all his time on the next move, which is totally reasonable, right? Because queen f7 here, and now he used all his time. The seeming knockout move is knight h4, going after the knight that's stopping checkmate. That looks like the end of the world. Is my mic a little bit too loud? I think it's a little bit too loud. Weird. Okay, so super loud. So weird. Okay, so this looks like the knockout move, right? Knight h4, just breaking the back of Black's defenses. You know, the rook can't mess with the queen because the knight's in the middle here. And this position looks like Black should just be dead. With this knight, this rook, this queen, the pawn as an extra attacker, it really looks like you should have checkmate, but he doesn't quite. So the problem with knight h4, I think, is queen b4, threatening the rook. Right? And knight f5 is not mate all with checks. You need two moves to give mate. You need knight f5, and then you can finish with checks from there. So you'd have to move this rook. You could do something like this or whatever. And... oh, then I thought the queen could somehow get to this square, but I don't see how. Wait, what's wrong with this? I'd assumed the queen would somehow get in contact with e4, you'd take the knight, and it would check, and then give a perpetual. But now I don't see how the queen gets there. You know, what's Black doing about this? With the queen on b4, is there any use in this? Not really, right? Because white gives you the check on e8. Crunch. Anywhere else Black could go here? Huh. I don't know. Now I don't know why this move didn't win. I mean, I'm sure it's like the first move he looked at, first move I looked at. Spent all his time here and decided it didn't work. Oh, knight takes his mate. Queen here, knight takes f5. Okay, so he went for the second move that I calculated, which was knight g7 here. Now, if you had rook e8, you'd be winning. Unfortunately, the knight comes here. It's kind of unfortunate. You know, if you could move your rook through this knight, you'd be winning. But the only way to make a forcing move with your knight is this trade, which defends e8. Comes in here for mate. The rook goes to g8. But here, there's not, you know, there's no clear way to break this. Again, like knight h4, knight f5 might be a way to try and get through, but it's not 100% clear. He goes rook here. And now Hari's thinking here. Queen f4 is the most aggressive square. And what does he have in mind then? Okay, is queen g8 going to work somehow? Doesn't seem like it, right? 7, queen f4. Kostya.
Zelly wants she wants blah blah that are not in the with series. She wants to see them play.
Ok, d'accord.
Can I let her ask them?
Oui, tu peux.
Thanks.
Let me fix one thing with this info. Let's move that over a tiny bit and just say starting at 9:30. Morning, Barrel Stigma. Hey, Merles. So Merles, you're thinking as queen f4, there's no breakthrough, so it would just be queen here, trying to cover the diagonal to the king and anchor the knight. It defends the a2 pawn as well. White has sort of everything defended. You can get checked. You can drop this pawn. That's not nothing from Black's perspective, right? To get this pawn off the board, because that opens up the rook, and the king's not in the same kind of body bag of checkmates here. I mean, this kind of says White has to play an endgame now. Up the a pawn, which is good. Now, from White's perspective, if you could trade queen suddenly, that would be ideal. As long as you're not losing your a pawn immediately to rook a8, but like queen b6 was played. Merles is saying here you would block with the knight instead of bringing the king out. Oh, and the queen can't get here in one shot then. Oh, and you open up a beautiful threat like this. In fact, even with the queen on f4, were we already threatening that? Oh my goodness, look at this. I creep. Boom! Now that's a weird threat. Awkward to deal with, in fact. So Hari went a different direction. Hari played queen b6, basically looking at coming here to harass the king, maybe pick up the g-pawn if White takes the queen's eye off of it, maybe this. White could go rook d5, I presume, keeping the queen on this pawn and introducing rook h5 instead of queen h5. Because queen d5 will allow Black to take the g-pawn and diffuse the threats on h5. And White has taken with the rook, as I just predicted. So now, if Hari goes here and blunderously takes the a-pawn, this is the same checkmate. Just sacking the rook instead of the queen is far more obvious and less beautiful. But nonetheless, he's threatening this, and he's now 2 pawns up temporarily. It looks just truly terminal for Black in general, and has for a while. It's just calculating the specific moves is not easy, just because you can tell the position's probably winning when you're playing 30 seconds per move. He doesn't have 40 minutes, he's got 40 seconds, and that's because he had 10 seconds and he got the 30-second increment. So every move you get 30 seconds, you think down to like 5 or 10 seconds, you play a move. It's not easy to calculate everything right under those circumstances. The check happens. King comes up, no knight to g1. So he sacks the a-pawn with check. I guess he's saying if you take on a2, then you've got like double the problems with this rook h5 move. It's now you have to avoid it being mate, and you have to avoid losing your queen. Note, though, you do have to be careful what square you put your king on. Check out this hilarious move. King g3. I don't know what. Haha! Checkmate! Checkmate! And your queen, bro! Check. You try. No. No. Too late. Okay, fine. I'll move my king. Oops. Merle says knight g1 led to mate. Brutal. Yeah. I mean, maybe not mate, but certainly Black winning. Hey, Caps Chess. Hey, Skibix. Hey, Gamma Matrix, who is rooting for the correct player. Actually, I really like Hari Krishna. I really, really like Hari Krishna. So, I don't know. Okay, f5. Keeping that rook away. But now this knight is a good piece, finally. Now, could he not, if he had that f5 move, could he not throw this in first? And then f5 here? I suppose he may have been scared of rook f5 because the queen's dangling. Queen takes, and then maybe pawn takes, but rook takes, keeping these pieces kind of tied up. That looks very, very likely that white wins that endgame. So that might be why he didn't play f5. Why he didn't play queen a2 before f5. So he plays f5. You see Gukesh flagging out of the corner of our eyes. And rook c5 played. Maybe. Me too, Gamma. Just whoever's playing good, I'm enjoying it. Well, we'll have to wait around to find out if Gukesh dramatically flagged while playing this move or not. If he made it with a second left on his clock. The idea is the queen covers here. The rook prepares to cover some approach squares towards the king. And yeah, things look good. I'll be right back. We're going to have our tournament. And yeah, this is a game from Tata Steel. We're going to be having our tournaments here on Chess Dojo pretty soon. We had incredible Friday night fights last night. Super cool. Let's close that one. You see I keep Gukesh's last games open here. I've got his game with Noterbeck. Here we've got the full view of round 7. Looks like there's been one win so far. Oh my god, Arjun lost to Warmerdarm? Oh. Arjun was like the fastest ever to go from 27 to 2800 or something, about to be the fastest to go from 2800 to 2700. Good lord. Good lord. Oh god, it's agony. Okay, but folks, for all of us, you know, what's very important for us is our tournament, right? We're all going to play. And you can find that through Chess Dojo or XClan Play. You can find the links to that tournament, which starts in 15 minutes. You can find it like this. You see, here are the links through the club. I'll be back in a minute. King F1. game is still going. No decision or resignation yet. Check. Queen's covering this. He made move 40. Gukesh didn't flag. Thank goodness. Black's pretty stuck, huh? If the knight moves, there's checkmate. If the rook moves, maybe the rook could move in some cases a little bit. White can always bring the rook back to the 7th rank, though, to tie it down. An important thing is White never has this back rank mate trick, because when the knight moves, it always clears this square, and White's knight is like nowhere near attacking that particular square. Okay, let me just look how our viewer arenas are looking. Let's see if we've got folks ready to play. Oh, we got a big group of players in the 1700 plus arena. Super. Let's check 13 to 1700. Oh, a good crew of people waiting in the 13 to 1700 arena. Nice. With 15 minutes to go, people are ready. They want to fight. Under 1300? Nice. We're going to have an under 1300 tournament as well. Beautiful. All right, folks. Nice. So everybody's cool. We'll just watch Gukesh and Hari while we wait, right? Chessbase India wanted him to go like king up, king up, king up, king up. Yeah. Who wouldn't want that, right? The king walk. Well, now, knowing Gukesh, he's got 50 minutes. He's going to calculate like 15 moves ahead, 10 moves ahead here. Spend 30 or 40 minutes doing it. We'll have started our tournament by the time he moves again, right? All right. Enjoy it, Ben. Given the difference in players there. What do you mean, Caps Chess? You should join 13 to 1700 if you want to play today and your rating is between 13 and 1700. I guess I also would kind of like Gukesh to walk the king up here. So what happened here? Black gave a check. He came back. Black gave a check. And he probably just comes back, right? He was probably just making a move towards time control. Hey, Dr. Peafowl. Oh, because there's more players there? You know, Caps Chess, we've still got 12 minutes to go before the tournament joins. You're going to get more players, for sure. Like, normally at this time, we've only got 1 or 2 players in each section. And then about 7 or 8 minutes from now, you know, we hopefully get 2 or 3 people. The tournaments get up to 5 people. They kick off and start. And then over the course of the couple hours of the arena, more and more people just keep coming in and joining. So I would say stick to your section. Oh, I'm sorry, Peafowl. Umar Hussein, are you a member of the Chess Dojo Club? Show you what I mean. This thing here, Chess Dojo. Because the way chess tournaments work on chess.com is they're organized within a club. And here I can send you the link to the club, perhaps. And you have to be a member of the club to play the tournaments. We don't use the club for anything else. No spamming, no this or that. It's literally just the way we run the tournaments on chess.com. Can we do Gamba Gamba? What is Gamba Gamba, Lucas? You won too quickly. Oh, that's unfortunate, Dr. Peafowl. Lu Miao Yi won again? Incredible. Incredible, that little kid. You want to predict something, Lucas? Awesome. Right on, Umar. You mean you want me to try and make like a prediction on the Twitch or something like that? I don't know how to do that, unfortunately. Sorry. Who's gonna win Gukesh Pentala? Yeah, it's gonna be Gukesh. We can just predict it verbally. Right. If there's any mods out there that know how to do it, they could do it. The easy prediction at this point to me is that Gukesh is going to win this game. The trickier prediction that I made is that he's going to think on this move until our tournament starts. Skivix has a question. Skivix has played the 45 classical games and analyzed them from the program. Should they continue analyzing weekly club games or focus on the other tasks in the meantime? It's a very, very tricky question, Skivix. Very nice. Because to some extent, everybody should always be continuing to play games. But if you've played your 45 classical games and your rating has not yet gone up to graduate your cohort, then from a certain perspective, it would be logical that you should do something else to go up, right? Like you've played the games and that didn't get you where you needed to go. There's probably something missing somewhere else in the tasks that you need to get up there. So I would say focus on the other tasks. Yeah. But I would not completely stop playing, yeah? So if you're playing weekly games, I think maybe keep doing those, but instead of analyzing more and more games past game 45 at the moment, maybe try knocking out some other tasks, especially if you have a sense, Skibix, of where you might have like a relative weakness or something that's holding you back. Like, is it tactics, or is it end games, or is it your knowledge of strategy, or is it your opening positions? If you've got any sense of where you're a little relatively weak at the moment, then maybe work on tasks from that bucket, so to speak, right? When Kostya, Jesse, and I, and the and Jack and the programmers and everybody, when we talk about the training program, we talk about the different categories as buckets now, right? So we've got like the end game bucket, the tactics bucket, etc. So take a task from the bucket that you think might be holding you back a bit. Hey, Prabhav. I am feeling very good today, yes. And I don't know anything about a scandal in Xiangqi. Nope. Tournaments starting in 5 or 6 minutes, I think. Probably. So for those of you who are already in the tournaments, you could start thinking about being ready in 5 minutes. What is it to be ready for a tournament? I mean, to have like some calm and peace around you, right? Maybe a quiet spot, maybe putting away our cell phones, unless you're playing the whole tournament on a cell phone. And maybe having a glass of water or some nuts to keep your energy sustained. In a panic, I grabbed a quarter of a cup of milk that was sitting on the counter and a biscotti. The problem with a biscotti as a commentator is it's going to be very loud if I eat it, but I was in a rush to get here. And somebody asked, Lucas, I think you asked what I thought of the Warmer Arm Aragaisi game. I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know. There was match fixing going on among the top 10. The best player ever in Xiangqi has been banned. So basically the Magnus Carlsen of Chinese chess, banned for cheating. Oh, wow. That's dramatic, yeah. Of course, JMC, of course. Always working on something new. The tournament starts in 3 minutes. I can't share much with you in that time, but maybe I could... Maybe I could give you something. This is what I'm working on right now.
Step into Wix Studio, the platform for agencies and enterprises, and turn website layouts into an art form.
You can hear that? Run other litter, others were physically fitter, swifter, stronger, and bigger. But I knew I was a winner, endowed with a passion that you just can't imagine. I really liked Mike, I had to be a champion. Scoured hours of tape for Braun's slightest mistakes, and of course hit the gym every couple of days. After years of occasional sweat on my brow, it was a shock to all when my life turned around. Black tie function, corruption luncheon, would-be autocrat gets funds from technocrats. When I came through with my gat, blasting that fat cats. Who'd have thought my hope dreams would fall flat? 2-inch vertical, unparalleled hurdler from Division 3 prospect to proud murderer. Temperature rising as I slide by Secret Service, murk the target through a curtain like I'm FPS smurfing. They skip all debate, so fools debate which one's worthless. I don't waste words, I just waste the perfectly evil, deceitful, and corrupt. Those that say and make collateral damage of people. They like to pose before churches, never truly visit. I give them closed casket service, an exquisite exhibit. Warning's been given, but these leaders won't heed it. I pop up in Beige in Delhi, Egypt, etc. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. He moved! Got checked again. How do you leave the tournament after one game? Just don't start another one, sleepy old owl. In these arena tournaments, every time you finish a game, like a button will come up asking you if you want to be paired for the next game or not. So just play one game and then let it go. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. I'm still rough on delivering it. It's pretty new to me. But I mostly remember it, at least. I just made a couple little mistakes. Okay, so the tournament's starting in like 1 minute, right? Are those of you playing ready to play? Hey, Melora. Okay, Merle says one way we could lose as white would be King G3, Queen B8 check, King H4, heading to H6, Queen F4, oops. Hello, how are you? Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, I mean, fortunately in this position, I imagine there's other ways to block this check. 95, maybe. I think it's like pretty sure he's going to win, but I'm going to switch over now to Chess Dojo View, okay, guys? Oh, this game was fantastic yesterday. All right, let's go to the under 1300 arena. Games are going to be kicking off in 30 seconds. So buckle up, folks. Buckle up. And let me fix my screen capture to optimize for Dojo instead of Gukesh. No one was in the 1700 plus? Sir Flax, I saw like 1 million people in the 1700 plus earlier today. 1700 plus. 10 players. Including yourself now. I see you back in there. And the first round just started. But I'm going to start with a Dr. Peafowl game. I hope Dr. Peafowl has muted the stream and is not listening in on us. Apparently, yesterday there was a great misfortune. Dr. Peafowl was playing Friday Night Fights and won their Classical game so quickly, I didn't even manage to see their game. So we're going to make up for that today. And then after that, we're going to go check out a Skibix game because Skibix might need a little bit of a pointing in a certain direction for how to graduate from their cohort. There's no rounds, Drew. Just hang on and you'll get paired whenever someone else joins the arena. It could start anytime your next game, so stay ready. Stay ready. Okay, so we've got Catalan accepted or open here, right? Black takes. Normally in this position, white plays bishop g2 and castles, or queen a4 check and grabs the pawn immediately. But here, Doozer has played an unusual but perfectly logical move of knight c3. You know, just coming to control squares in the center and develop and cut off b5 from defending this pawn. But it's such an unusual move that Dr. Peafowl is sent into think mode, right? Like, okay, what are the pluses and minuses of this move I'm not used to? What's the best way to react to it? Very good choice to stop and think and not say, okay, well, he played some normal developing move. I'll play some normal developing move. So, yeah, I like this response already, the spending of time right here. Okay, chooses knight c6. So the idea here is to put some pressure on the d-pawn, but also to play rook b8 to get the rook off the diagonal of this bishop. That's one of the big ideas of knight to c6, right? Is when the opponent goes bishop g2, you go here, rook b8, castles, bishop e7 or whatever. Or even, maybe we could play b5 already. The point is that with the rook not on this diagonal, you may not get killed by a move like knight e5. You might still get killed sometimes. You still have to calculate it, but the idea is to not have your rook here when that happens. Against knight c3, another move that made logical sense to me was bishop to b4. Because I know that there's a line where white goes bishop g2 and black plays check, right? To try and bother white on this diagonal. So maybe after knight c3, you could go bishop b4. You're willing to give up the bishop pair to control the b5 square and keep your extra pawn. Seems reasonable as well. It will auto start the moment someone is available to play you, Sir Flax. Yeah. Oh, look at that. We get a quick rook b8. So Dr. Peafowl used the time well when thinking for a couple minutes about knight c6. You know, they predicted bishop g2 as a possible move for white and had a plan ready, playing rook b8 quickly. Love that. Professional time usage already here at an 1800 level. Lucas thinks that Gukesh has a checkmate available. Wow. That would be something. I know you guys can't see the screen properly when I switch. King g3 played. Okay, we're just one move away from where we were before. It's not Gukesh's move. I guess he does not have a mate in 7, so to speak. Daniel says so. Okay. I will check over on Gukesh occasionally today, but not as often as I might normally. I'm not very nervous because I'm pretty confident he's winning. If I were less confident, I might be nervously checking his game nonstop. But here I'm pretty confident that he is going to take this game home as Doozer sacks the d-pawn to jumpstart development. There's also this idea, bishop e3, bishop a7, you can regain a pawn there. You can hit black with knight b5, so I think black may need to trade now. But if you trade, tempo to the queen, and then bishop a3, how do you get castled? It's a very dangerous moment here for black, actually, right now. It may look like white just hung their center pawn weirdly with queen c2. Why did they play queen c2? You know, just to hang their pawn. Why didn't they castle? Oh, white's just collapsing. But not at all. This is very common to sack this pawn in this opening, and it's definitely a dangerous moment for black right now. Actually, I'm so worried about bishop a3 here that I wonder if maybe I wouldn't do better to play c6 to stop knight d5 and knight b5 instead of trading the piece. You know, I'm still coming under some dangerous aggression. Where am I going? What am I doing with myself? Gukesh is my favorite player currently. I mean, he's one of the players I root for the hardest, JMC. I mean, I also root for myself. If I played a game against Gukesh, not sure who I'd root for. Probably Gukesh, actually. If my buddy Sam played against Gukesh, I'd probably root for Sam. So, but yeah, Gukesh is one of my favorites for sure. One of my very favorites. And let's put it this way, JMC. I make sure to look at every single game he plays, which I don't do for that many players. This looks scary for black. I'm still not satisfied with what I found. And we see P-Foul spending some significant time on this move. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, is there any way you could take and then plop your queen on the diagonal and the file with the idea of trying to block the diagonal, right? Have the queen do some heavy lifting herself. Hey, Cross, how are you today? Oh, we got it. Do we have a move from P-Foul? We do. A5. Doozer slams knight b5. This is scary. So a5 was to lock in these squares and not get harassed more from here. But white's got bishop f4 and bishop e3. And my tingly sensor is telling me that one of these moves is crushing. Bishop e3, queen e7 is not crushing, I guess. So bishop f4 looks logical. We get bishop e3 though, queen e7. I saw that one coming. What was the plan against bishop f4, huh? Oh, sounds interesting, Cross. Sounds very interesting. What was black planning here? My first instinct was something like castles, bishop takes, rook here. Allow this whole thing to happen? But it looks basically lost. 0 pawns for the exchange. Not a particularly active position for black. Open files for the rooks so that they can actually outperform the minor pieces, which is not always a given, you know? Okay, Summoner asks, should I take my time if I know the first few moves or play fast to save time for later? If, like, you're in opening theory summoner, like, for example, let's look at this game. Let's say that you play the Catalan semi-regularly. You know this position. Is there any reason white should think about d4, c4, knight f3, g3? No. You can play those moves quickly. And you can wait until your opponent plays a move you're not familiar with. The moment they play a move you're not familiar with, that's where you could start thinking. You know? Sleepy old fowl, your first game was very short. Wow, 10 minutes. Very short. Okay, in the game, bishop e3 here. Okay, white grabbed a pawn. Sure, that makes sense. c6 comes in, so white's got one pawn back. But now the knight's getting kicked. I did not see, by the way, what black was supposed to do about bishop f4. That move looked rough. Okay, so instead we get this position with c6. How does white keep some kind of an initiative flowing? Because we're still down a pawn as white. Still down a pawn. Okay, I gotta do one little thing. Just a quick little check. Are you playing a game yourself right now, Sir Flax? Or are you still waiting? Sir Flax, you're in a game. I'm only going to give you advice one time during an actual game you're playing, but you should focus on your game instead of somebody else's game here. Mute the stream while you're playing, friend. Mute the stream. Go play your game. Knight d4. Knight d4, and black lashes out instead of castling. Wow. You would have thought black would be happy just to get castled with their extra pawn, but Dr. Peafowl says, let me take over the center as well. Nice c6 pawn covering the light squares, take some space in the dark squares with this pawn, let the bishop out. Peafowl's trying to just destroy white's position here. White prepares to trade the bishop and then go after the dark squares. It's always risky to not castle right away. Beautiful development. That's bizarre, Merles. Yeah, that makes sense what Caps Chess says, Merles. If your opponent like suddenly had to do a work meeting or maybe had a baby sleeping, taking a nap, and the baby woke up crying, then you could resign to be polite to your opponent instead of leaving them waiting and run off to deal with it. And obviously it's not the most polite thing to leave an opponent without finishing the game, but sometimes it's the best you can do. Okay, now how precious is black about this bishop? Is he going to retreat? Ooh. That looks pretty smart. That piece was so-so on f6, right? Now it's great. Plus, we're asking about a queen trade when we're up a pawn. And if the opponent trades, we can even keep our dark squared bishop. Oh, man. That would be everything. But if white takes here, we trade queens, leave them with 2 h pawns. Oof. So that's what makes giving the bishop pair just fine, Caps Chess. I mean, this is like losing a full pawn for white to play g takes h4. That said, you're right. The bishop pair is always the bishop pair. Now, there are still challenges, right? Still not easy, huh? Not like 100% easy, even that. Oh, wow. You feel like you got lucky, Umar? Most chess players always talk about how unlucky they are. Very rare to have somebody talk about how lucky they are. Okay, this variation we predicted just happened. And now white, rook c1. I feel like this bishop c5 was the really challenging move at the end of this line that Doozer needed to spot. The d6 square is so weak for that bishop to come in, and the king struggles to get around the rook fast enough. Like, there's a very solid positional way to get the king around, right? Which is you go like this. Well, maybe it is fast enough. The bishop stops the rook from coming in. They can put the piece here, but that's defended. Oh, look at that. It's no big deal. f6. Good old f6. It works again. Merles, you're saying right here, black could have taken on e3 instead of here, huh? Hits a rook. This would be the question, right? Have you calculated this? Well, if you've got a rapid tournament coming up, Umar, one of my first tips is play a practice tournament like this one here. That's the best preparation. The other thing is sleep really well. Exercise, but not too hard the last day before the tournament and during the tournament. So exercise leading up to the tournament. One day before the tournament, drop your exercise regimen a little bit so that you have energy and you're rested. So just do something like a little bit of walking outdoors, but nothing where you're killing yourself or feeling sore. Knight c6 hitting the rook seems to win a pawn, but maybe black has this amazing idea here, here, and then here. And try to trap this piece. Oh, if white goes rook c1, there's knight e2. Merles, do you think b takes c6 looks decent as well? Check. Here. Here. You just want to play this position. You're not up pawns anymore, but their structure is like being up lots of pawns, huh? It's decent, but black was up a clean pawn before. Okay, so we get rook c1 in the game, and black gets castled. White stops rook d8, good move. And then takes the d file. Knight d5, of course. And now, one defensive option for white is just to seek refuge in opposite-colored bishops. Ooh, white instead drops the piece. Okay, that's the end of that. All right, enjoy your game. I guess trading on d5 was the only real choice here, huh? I agree, Viral Stigma. Black's up not just a pawn, but this thing here, making it almost a two-pawn advantage. But the fact that it's opposite-colored bishops is like a glimmer of hope for white, right? And whichever way you take on d5, in fact, we could go after the a5 pawn. Certainly with some hope for black. If it weren't opposite-colored bishops, I would maybe say no hope, but... Oh, here's a weird tactic. Rook a6. Maybe white doesn't get the pawn back. That's interesting. Maybe here? With the idea of like if f6 we could take with the rook. b6 we can go here. Okay, my feeling is the best I can do is set up like this. This comes here, take, here, here. This is my big chance to try to save the game. Maybe I just let this stuff sit instead of overplaying it. Because if you go for this trick here, white has rook c1, b6, rook c6. I mean, I'm almost losing with black. I'm playing this so badly here. Maybe I am. No, I'm not losing if I go bishop d7, I guess. So maybe just say, hey, this is kind of awkward, and let's bring the king towards the game here, huh? Or d4 could be logical too. Freeing the bishop from defending that pawn so that here we can start going after this pawn. There's this. And there's some hope. There's some hope. We can see that it's not completely easy. But here, P-Fowl's got this extra piece, which is cruising around the board. They're playing very fast now. And Black wins. Now, I wanted to find Skibix next, right? So let me try and find Skibix. All right, so Skibix has an extra bishop here, as well as pawns. Hangs the pawn on a2 with check. Aye, aye, aye. The first thing I was going to say about this is, like, if Skibix doesn't win this endgame as white, then we know that endgames are a problem, right? So we'll see. Dr. P-Fowl, I watched your entire game, so you'll be able to check the VOD to see what I think. The video recording, right? Now we're going to look at Skibix and Skibix's technique for the endgame. I feel like this is actually not a good sign for technique either, the king going this direction. Your king is sort of stuck here, right? Look at this. After rook g8, the king's stuck this way, and black could check at some point and take your h-pawn, right? So to me, it's more logical to bring my king towards the center, right? And then when the rook retreats, I can always play, you know, h4 if I want. I'll probably throw in this check first. King moves to one of these squares, and then play h4. And now my king's more central. More different directions it can go. And the passed pawn can advance. So I think it's the wrong instinct to send the king to the side here. Let's see how he does. Rook h5 is a very good move, though. Stopping any rook h8s forever. I know there's also the bishop. And preparing to kind of box this king in. And dealing with the fact that we've put the king not on the best square. So that looks good. Knight d5 was a mistake. You thought it was great? Yeah, knight d5 looked great. Well, Dr. P-Fowl, I mean, you shouldn't be asking the computer. Here's how to play, Tigran. There are the links. The first link is if you're under 1,300. The second link is for 13 to 1,700. The third link is for 1,700 plus, chess.com ratings. Back to our game here. Rook e8. We get the check, forcing the king into bad edge of the board. The rook's double. Looking for some mates. Nice play by Skibix here, using the rooks very nicely. Oh no, you had just e5? That's hilarious. I'm sorry, P-Fowl. Now you're like even more useless than the computer is what David says about my games. Right, bishop f4, e5. That's easy. So you had that whole opening covered. It was going your way the whole time, huh? Qui est là? Qui est là? Toi?
Well, obviously she's following me.
C'est toi?
Yes.
Ah oui!
Daddy.
Oui? Tu,
Yes.
tu veux voir ton papa?
Yes.
Are you coming?
Viens, voilà, on est là. Tu vois, ça c'est nous.
My.
Oui, ça c'est toi.
My.
Ça c'est moi, ça c'est toi.
You gonna come with us?
Yeah, my.
Daddy.
Oui,
Daddy. More dad.
oui. Tiens, tu veux que je te mette là-haut aussi, toi? Ok, regarde.
Feeling, you wanna come?
Regarde, voilà, tu es là-haut aussi. Maintenant. Tu vois? Toi. Tu vas être ici aussi? Ah! Encore toi. Et toi? T'es partout maintenant?
Okay, Feeling.
C'est bien? Hein?
Here, Dad.
Caps Chesty, bienvenue dans la stream. Ok.
Daddy.
Oui, chérie.
Bye bye, Dad.
Bye bye, chérie. Amuse-toi bien. She's like telling her mom, that was my daddy back there. Like she doesn't know. That was my daddy. Okay. So I was trying to watch the Skivix game before she popped in, and I think Skivix did convert that game, right? Games I was watching. I do not think that you should resign early. No, play your games for real, the way you normally would. The whole point of being in the tournament is, well, it's to have fun, so you can do it your way, right? But one of the points of being in the tournament is just to sort of play chess and practice chess the way you would normally play chess or practice chess. So I think you can resign when you would normally resign. You don't, like, especially need to win the arena points or something like that. It's not really for me to say. But me personally, I would just, I sort of take everything. I take almost everything as practice. So I would probably do it kind of the way I would, towards whatever I'm practicing for. Okay, so French defense from Baymon, advanced variation from Skibix. We're going to keep our eyes on Skibix because we only got to see, a bishop up position for 5 moves. So we're going to watch a real game here from the old Skib. Skibix has played all 45 classical games for their cohort and annotated all 45 of them, folks. So a tremendous amount of work. And therefore, we're going to try and check out this game and see if we've got any tips or advice. That's quite an unusual move, knight f3 here. Skibix stopped and thought for a little bit. Normally, one plays... normally, in what I've seen, people are always sort of putting the whole pawns in a chain like this to support the center. Skibix goes knight f3, and of course there are plenty of positions where you've got a knight on d4 instead of a pawn, and it can be perfectly good for white. Seeing this mover, my first thought for black is, what if black takes, and then goes knight c6, attacking your e-pawn really quickly? Can you support the knight on d4 and the pawn on e5? Can we get a good position here as black? My first thought is it should be pretty good for black. In the game, black is thinking after queen takes d4. Oh, Skibix keeps the pawn defended. And against knight c6, plans to transfer the queen over to the strong side of the board. That is complicated. Black has to come to terms with this idea, yeah. By the way, Baymon played in Friday Night Fights last night. Fantastic slugfest in the Benoni against Aaron, who's 600 points higher rated, and Baymon played a real exciting, close game with them. A6. Okay, so Baymon, what they were concerned about was bishop b5, trading the knight and keeping control of these two squares. Me personally, in the French, I never play a6 for knight c6. I just play knight c6, and if my opponent wants to give me their best bishop for control of these two squares, I accept. I let them do it, and I say so it goes. Yeah, Dr. P-File. My mom is a painter. She made that when I was an adolescent. After I described to her what chess dreams could be like. So a6, Skibix aims the bishop this way, knight c6, and quickly to g4. So I get the feeling like Skibix was never even going to play bishop b5. I feel like Skibix had this concept in mind from the beginning. It was a little bit masked by the fact that after c5 in this theoretical position, Skibix thought for 25 seconds instead of blitzing out c3 or knight f3. That made me think that Skibix had basically no opening prep, didn't know what they were doing. After cd4, they thought for another 35 seconds, which in a rapid game is, in a classical game, it might just be you're adjusting your watch or, writing your name on your score sheet or something like that. But in a rapid game online, 35 seconds says that, you're thinking about things. But then revealed this, and I think that Skibix always had in mind to transfer the queen over to the king side like so. Very interesting stuff. Okay. Bishop f4 defending the pawn. Now, black plays knight b4. Let me just say this is a little bit odd to me from Baymon because first we played a6 because we didn't want knight c6, bishop b5, trading the bishop for our knight, in theory, right? Now, we're playing knight b4 to go to... Now we've played a6, knight c6, knight b4, and then knight takes d3 to trade the knight for the bishop, where you could have just played knight c6, and then when they play bishop b5, just keep developing. Let them trade on c6 at some point. So now... look at the position and check if the time reflects what I just said. 1, 2, 3 moves of energy just to trade the knight for the bishop. Is white ahead approximately 3 tempi in development? That's the question. We would expect it. So how many moves for white to connect the rooks? 1. You can just castle. How many moves for black? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 moves, and for white it's 1 move and it's white's move. So white is 3.5 tempi ahead in development. That means black has lost 3 full moves of development in the opening at this point. That is a lot. White castles. There are many things white could have done here. The move rook c1 is likely to be very strong because you're defended by the bishop. You get this tempo on the queen and you're threatening knight b5, knight d5, knight e4 kind of moves. So there's a good chance that black has to respond to that. Plus, it is a developing move to go to the open file. Like, the rook's on its best square. I would probably slide that move in. The other move that occurred to me was h4 because I feel like this knight is headed to g6. And then I want to be threatening h5. I guess black will have this move, which will still be pretty complicated. So white played the simplest move. It's probably not bad at all. Castling, knight g6 comes in, and now rook c1. Baymon pays the tribute tempo. Against knight f4, white might even throw in knight b5 or knight d5 before taking this piece. I guess not. Like, black could do this. And the knight hops back and it collected an army on its way. And if we go knight b5, who's got... Does white... Who's better here? Oh, shoot. White's winning. Okay, so knight f4, knight b5 is probably winning for white. I mean, there's a small chance that you could throw in this check and then save your queen. With the idea that if they go take your rook, you're going to then take their rook. Oh, better not do that because our queen's going to get hit by the knight. Queen a5. Knight check, king here. Knight takes, rook takes. This feels like it's clarifying white's advantage, though, actually, honestly. It was super fancy, but black just traded off one of their two pieces that were developed. Right? And this file has become more clearly open, and it's more obvious to me how white's going to pursue their advantage. Like knight g5, going after f7, queen f4. The king has to keep the bishop defended. It feels like collapse is getting really imminent here. I can already picture how black loses. How they get overworked trying to defend the f7 square and the squares on the c file because you can't let white... Well, because white will be threatening to come through the c file. I did read your messages, Dr. P file. I did. It was good time usage. It was good time usage by you. Very good. I said it in the game, and I may have missed the move e5, but I still believe it was good time usage by you. Whoa! 1.5 minutes, and Skibix goes for a heck of a blow. The idea is e takes d5, rook takes c8. And if not, e takes d5, knight to c7. Oh, mama. This game is showing you what a development lead will do, right? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Did you guys believe me when I said a6, knight c6, knight b4, knight d3 was not logical for black? Oh my goodness. Because if you didn't believe me then, you're believing me after what Skibix is doing. Knight takes d5. There's no good options. Knight takes queen is threatened. Any queen move, knight c7, you're down a rook. And e d5, rook c8, is there any way to keep going here? The rook has to trade because it's hanging. King here, this move. King's got nowhere to go other than this, which opens the e file. Which feels like a really bad thing to do. But I guess technically the king doesn't get mated. For bishop f6 check. If black does anything like fancy, with like a counterattack, there's always here. There's also bishop f6 while leaving all this tension, right? And then, head towards the king to checkmate. You can block queen d8, keeping some hope of castling. And a queen trade leaves you down one pawn, but in an endgame, so the king's not getting thrashed. But after queen b7, weakening the c6 square, the a6 pawn, now white's up 2 pawns with the idea of rook c1. Maybe black gets castled. Okay, we've bled 3 pawns, but we didn't lose any major pieces. Bishop on f4 is hanging. I should take that into account as well. Hang on. Queen here. Let's try to grab the piece. Let's try to win for black. I was in a very defensive state of mind there. This is the move that white wants to do, but it's not going to cut it. That one knight beats the whole world. This is what black should do then, because with this bishop hanging, white's not able to just collect the whole queen side. White has to do something like trade queens or come back and defend the bishop. Okay, that's the best defensive line for black. Baemon thought for 5 minutes, correctly took on d5. Let's see if Baemon has planned queen d8. 0.4 seconds. So that was a very good calculation by Baemon, confidently predicting several moves there. Very impressive, regardless of whether the game is won or lost. That's very, very good. Serious calculation work there, as black in a bad position to stop and find the way to keep yourself in the game. Only way. And Baemon found it, looking several moves ahead, and, had enough confidence and a solid enough clarity on the calculation to then play the follow-up instantaneously. Rook c8 was 0.1, queen d8 was 0.4, so yeah, this was totally envisioned clearly by Baemon in advance. And now, yeah, that keeps Skibix's advantage to like a smaller scope where we'll see what Skibix's conversion skills are like. This is not at all guaranteed for white here with just 1 pawn up. My instinct is sort of to keep the queens, but if I go queen g4, there's h5, which I don't like. And if I go queen f5, there's queen d7, and I feel like I still have to trade queens just on d7 instead of d8. I feel like it's not very different. Skibix finds another angle, getting in the way of the rook to keep queens on the board. Man, oh man. But that move is so awkward as far as our queen not being strong and keeping our rook from taking the c file, that now keeping queens on the board is not even such a big advantage. After bishop e7, queen d2, castles, white's basically up 1 pawn like before. Not much more than 1 pawn. Now, it's a good pawn. I'd say, a very good chance that Magnus could win as white against Magnus as black. But, yeah, the advantage has been kept under control. And now Baemon can stop and think. Yeah, this is as far as you needed to see when you chose e takes d5, and now you can think again a little bit. But ultimately, bishop e7 is going to be a pretty simple move you'll probably want to play. You shouldn't end up tanking on this move, right? It's not like a critical or tactical moment. So by now, I would say Baemon should have moved. This should be at most a 30-second move. You're regathering your thoughts a little bit now that you've reached this position. But ultimately, the thought should be to continue development, right? Bishop e7 castles have to happen. The thing I can imagine someone being caught up on is, should I trade my knight for this bishop? Because that's an opportunity now that will disappear next move. My thought is no, because it gives white a tempo to play rook c1. So just timing-wise, I don't want to hand my opponent a tempo here. Bishop c5? Hyper fancy falutin from Baemon goes for something really strangely ambitious. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of this move. Whether white plays queen c5 or saves the bishop on f4 with a move like bishop g5 or bishop g3, I'm not a fan of this degree of fancy. In fact, one of the things I don't like about this is the move bishop e3. Making you take and open this file. And now I can support that pawn without having a weak pawn on d4. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's still hope for black this way. Trying to leave this as not a very good extra pawn. Huh. I can't crack bishop c5, but I've got a very bad instinct about this move. You know, queen c5, knight f4, and I can't do the things I want because of knight e2 and knight d3. Yeah, and rook e1, even knight d3. Maybe knight d4 would be logical. Covering knight e2, improving this piece. Okay. Ski went for the trade, which makes sense. Yeah, Stigma's saying maybe bishop g5 also looks good, just keeping this knight from getting involved. Queen has to defend the bishop, so we expect this move. b4, if takes, here. Where would the queen go against bishop g5, actually? Here, here, here? Come here with tempo. Ay, ay, ay. Do you see this? It's pretty concrete and tactical. The idea is there's only so many squares to defend the bishop from, and white has the idea of d4 and queen c8. So even if you go queen a5, queen b6, it doesn't matter where you are. d4 wins the game. So I think the only option is to put the queen here and answer d4 or b4, by the way. Either one, right? With bishop defending the queen. And now white can trade and go rook c1, tempo on this piece. Again, you can't let the rook come to c8. So the first move I look at for black is defending the bishop. And after rook c5, you'll see this pawn is dead. That's a second pawn for white. That's a big deal. It's like a pure calculation. That bishop g5 was maybe winning a second pawn. It doesn't seem like the sequence should be that forcing, but I think it is. Do you see any... Does that line up with your calculation, Viral Stigma? You see any errors in this? The king can't go to e6 because it's defending the bishop, and if the knight goes to e7, we just trade it and take the pawn, right? So, just simple play. Greetings, General Radon. Welcome to the tournament if you're going to be playing. Yeah, so bishop g5 looks like it takes a full second pawn advantage. And white might have even better. That's true, Viral Stigma. After this, instead of d4 or something, right, you could also consider a move like queen c3 or something, trying to play rook c1. But my guess is if black plays bishop b6, you know, the best thing you're going to have is going after the d pawn again. But, I don't know, maybe there's something even better. Okay, so we got knight f4, d4, knight e6, queen b4, queen e7, queen b3 hitting the pawn, queen d7 defending the pawn. White's trying to get something more out of this than the pawn, but is not able to so far. I mean, at least you can definitely get the c file. We repeat once. Now let's see if white takes the trade or goes to b3 or b6 and keeps playing the middle game. I mean, I feel like white's queen is better placed than black, so I'm actually tempted. I know this move comes with a tempo, but I'm tempted to do something like here, here, here. It makes me feel powerful to have these pieces on these squares. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just telling you how I feel. h4 check. King f4 check. Uh-oh, don't get the king mated. Rook e5. Queen d6. And he did bring the king to h6. Gukesh! And Gukesh wins a third game of Wake on Zay. 2 out of 3 wins are against his own seconds, so that taints it slightly. But overall, pretty good start to the tournament for him. And the 3 lowest rated players, the 3 players under 2,700, he hasn't played any of the 3 of them yet, right? Mendonca, Warmerdam, and Jordan. So he actually, he has a chance to get a good score here in this tournament. He could still get like a really good score, potentially. So yeah, good play. That was a beautiful game today. Right, the seconds know Gukesh very, very well. They're not like at a disadvantage playing against him. I'm just saying it feels a little bit weird to collect your points sort of against, your team or your friends or whatever, right? You also want to beat some people who aren't on your team. I don't know. It's just a little feeling thing. But it seems to me like he's in quite decent form. His defense against Abdusattorov yesterday was really tough, and that was well done. The endgame grind against Kamer, played that endgame pretty well. He had a tough endgame against Serrana he had to hold. I feel like he's showing that overall balance and toughness of, just whatever he gets, he doesn't get upset, right? Like what we say to like toddlers, or kids, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Like, he's not sitting there like, oh man, I should be trying to win every game. I should be the world champion. And here I am sitting defending a bad endgame. Let me do a crummy job of it. He's just playing every position he gets. Very, very solidly, calculating well. Good energy through to the end. He just feels strong, does Gukesh. And I'm always nervous for him. I'm always like afraid to say like he's looking good, because I'm always afraid that, something will go wrong and I'll feel so sad. But I think he looks pretty strong. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about, the form he's showing and the overall chess he's showing here. It looks good. Looks good to me. Okay, let's see what our buddy Skibix has done with this position. Went to the C file and said, sure, we'll just play with the C file. Yeah, reasonable. That sounds pretty insane, Merles. Oh, what a feeling, Merles. Wow. Wait, Viral Stigma, who are you saying has been on a big downturn? Do you not think that... Are you talking about Gukesh? What would be Gukesh's big downturn? You said like Aragaisi. So who other than Aragaisi is on a big downturn? Obviously, I'm very, very troubled to see how Aragaisi is doing at this tournament. I'm a big fan of his as well. So it's sad to see. Today he lost again. Dropped below Abdusattorov in the rankings. Oh, okay, I get it. Right, you're saying like my worry about Gukesh is something that could happen. We can see it happening to Aragaisi. I see what you're saying. You're saying that's like the thing that we're fearing. Yeah, totally. If I were Baemon, I would have taken the queen trade here. But Baemon leaves it in the air for another move with king d7. Now, white correctly keeps queens on the board because now your king's a target. I mean, yes, white's up a pawn, but your king's a target. But Baemon says, my queens Gonna pressure these squares, keep yours passive, and I'm gonna play rook c8, and everything will be okay. And yes, it's definitely a reasonable argument. White needs to play some clever moves, I guess. You know, some b3s, some h4s. You know, get rid of the back rank mate, get rid of queen b2, free up your queen to go queen c2, queen h7 on a rampage if possible. h3 was played, getting rid of back rank mate. Straight up, straight up. So now the idea is if black goes rook c8, and by the way, folks, h4 is better. It's just a little detail, Skibix, but h4 is better because how are you eventually winning this game? By queening. All right? And like the critical move to have in mind is, you know, what if Beimon plays rook c8? And ideally, we can make this work out for white, right? Where we go and grab here. Ideally. And that's why we wanted no back rank mate or not the b pawn hanging, right? One or the other is going to help us with this. So here, if black goes knight d4, white can take, and grab g7, defending the e pawn, going after the f pawn, coming this way. This is all winning, but you can see why I would want this pawn just going. I think in this line, black will leave that knight anchoring for the moment and take here. Then as white, you know, you're looking to move like queen f5, black's got king e7, and I don't see how we break through, and the black queen is just free reign down here. So I don't think we can go for it as white. So if we played b3 instead, maybe we could. Let's have a look at that instead, right? To compare and contrast. Maybe king d8 slightly better. Let's not worry about that for the moment. So now there's no queen b2. If black goes to the open file, we've got time to play h4. And we should be good. So now it feels like this move might happen. Then we go takes. Now there's the back rank mate, so we can't take the g-pawn. So this makes more sense for black now. If we play h4, there's queen e5. So we might have to defend and push. There's queen h4 there. Shoot. g3. Black could go here and here, but maybe even best for black is something like just centralizing here. Weirdly, if white takes, it's a pawn up, king and pawn ending, but I don't know if we can defend the e-pawn. And if black takes the e-pawn, it looks pretty good. Their king will be very strong. And if white moves away, my idea is I'm clearing the way for my counterplay, right? So white's got this 4-on-2 majority here, but no passed pawn yet, and this pawn is going to start moving quickly. It looks like black can defend that as well. Very hard to say what to do for white, actually. Beimon's idea, king d7, queen b6. Huh. Looking pretty good. Nice h6 move. Beimon knew that this queen c2 was the theme. Dang. That's really good board vision. I thought there's a good chance that at a 1500, 1600 level, they did not have their eyes on h7, right? That whenever the rook comes to c8, there's this queen c2 pattern. I thought there was like maybe a 10-20% chance that they saw that, and clearly Beimon did see it, so that's pretty nice. Hey Drew, under 1300 section. Is that a game that's already done? Or a game that's live right now? DG Chess sounds like it might be Dhruv Gupta. So maybe you've just finished the game and you want me to review a finished game. Fedoseev bounced back today and beat Kamer. Go Fedoseev. There's somebody else I root for. I was not happy to see Fedoseev lose yesterday. He's been on such a great streak, but being able to bounce back, super good. And yeah, he's on fire, is Fedoseev. Yes, it's over. Okay, well then let's watch the end of this game, Dhruv, okay? And we can always get to it Oh, check. The rook was defending the knight. I don't know if Baemon counted on that. Baemon's down to 17 seconds, and now the queen's over here, and this pawn structure is no longer defended by her. Oh, I think Baemon didn't see that the knight was defended and thought that they'd spotted basically like a repetition or something to force white to put the knight super passive to stop the repetition, which would be good for black. After g3, oh. Okay, that was a good presence of mind, though, with seconds on the clock to find queen e4. Because at least now if white checks rook c7, you don't have queen d5 with check. Yeah. White also has queen d6 here, though, which could also be brutal. Like maybe sacking the knight, you know? Oh, white chooses it. King e8 quickly. So the idea is to play rook b7, leaving the knight and the pawn and the king undefended, but saying you're going to checkmate first as white. Skibix goes for it. Goes for the kill. Only thing I'll say is if I were Skibix, I might have thought for an extra 30 seconds on that move because you've got 2 minutes. And I know you get amped up when your opponent's low on time and you're like, if they have a resource, maybe if I play rook b7 fast enough, they won't find the resource. But honestly, if you think you have a good position and you've got 2 minutes on the clock, check if your move is winning or not. Put in that time as the better percentage play. If they have a resource, then just don't play rook b7 and keep playing the game some other way. You know, but don't like go all in on like I hope this move works and that my opponent doesn't have time to find the way to stop it. You know, I think it's better to use your time in those situations when you've got 2 minutes against somebody on the increment. Okay. Overall, an impressive game by Skibix, and unfortunately, not much to point us in the direction of where Skibix should be working to get better. The whole game was very logical. Skibix was okay with giving up that bishop, knew exactly what to do with going to the c file, found a great tactic, and then, yeah, this part was not easy to play, but Skibix just was calm and said, okay, I'm just up 1 pawn. The game's not over. Collected themselves, made some good choices. You know, was willing to play the middle game or the end game. Yeah, just great overall. So, and pretty good time usage overall as well. Okay, so now let's go look for a game of Drooves. So here's Droove. We're going to go to the profile and see their past game against Caps Chess. And just make sure that in this new window my screen capture is fine. Yep. I can get rid of the thing where it says starting at 9:30 because it's already started. Okay, let's have a look at this game of DG Chess. French defense, advance, just like the last game we saw. Yeah, white tries to stop knight f5, and black fights for that square for the knight. That's logical. Interesting. Caps takes and goes for the e-pawn. Wow, clever move, DG. Fancy. I thought you were going to play knight e5 now. That gets defended. It's probably safer just to retreat the bishop to g3 here than to try and defend it and take a square from this knight. Yeah, I feel like this would definitely be a safer choice for white. Also, black can't play moves like f6 as easily when your bishop's solidly defended. And when you go queen d2, black played knight g6, but of course moves like f6 are possible when the bishop's not well defended. So it's just an extra It's just a bad tactical element, this bishop dangling here. But okay. Black uses the tactical element. The bishop gets out of the way. Black takes the pawn. I guess the damage is done. Solidifying the knight. Very, very good. Dhruv, I approve of f6 very much. This position, by the way, looks very, very wild. Like you're playing well as black, but you're not necessarily ahead much yet, right? Like who knows who's better? You know, white's got ideas like this because the knight can't yet go, right? Here, 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 here. White's got all kinds of juice. There's so many things that can happen. And if you went for something like this as white, I understand why you'd want your king here first, so you're better ready to put your rooks on these files and fight. But, I mean, also the king's not super safe over here. It's not clear where the king should go. This is super complicated chess they've got going on at this point. Queen gets off that diagonal. B5. What's the idea on queen c5? Well, Dhruv, I don't see what Cap's chess was going to do if you just took this pawn with your queen. I think she's on a good square here. I don't know if you somehow preferred to try to get your bishop here next move instead of your queen, but to my mind, it's nice not to have your queen on this diagonal because that bishop is totally anchored. I just don't want to be staring it down with my queen. I can take here, and after something like knight c2, if you want, you know, put the bishop here instead of the queen on this diagonal. This is super well supported. I don't know that we need to do that. Could also play a takes b5, looking at rook a2. Or bishop d7, looking at bishop takes b5 with your sort of bad piece. And then if they take, it opens the b file against their king. Did you see queen c5 and reject it, or did you not notice it? To me, it looks very good. It looks like the kind of move that if you see it, you probably play it. If you don't play it, it means you probably didn't see it, in my experience. But also, I'll say this b5 move is probably the first move that, like, to me, seems to really clearly be getting white in trouble. Up to this point, it wasn't clear to me who was better or by how much, etc. But b5, I think white's dream is to get the bishop or knight into the game on b5, but in fact, you're just never going to take, and so white's just weakening their own king, basically weakening their own king. To me, a move that would keep the game pretty interesting, I guess, would be knight here, with the idea of plopping the knight in the middle of the board. That looks... You saw it after you played the queen. Okay, so I was right. So you didn't play queen c5 because you didn't see it at the moment. Yeah. This would be my approach, Cap's chess, if you're out there or if you watch this at some point. This would be my approach from this position, is to recognize the knight's not good and it's not getting better sitting on a3. So I would bring it to d4. And d4 is an amazing square. First of all, you know, these pieces have to scramble. The rook might even be trapped. Plus, you're hitting at like a key weak spot in black's game, you know, where you can go rook e1, f4, and pry open the e6 point. So to me, this was like the first really big turning point in the game was knight c2 versus b5. Okay, onward. Queen c7, so Caps doesn't get knocked out yet, but I feel like this move actually, to some extent, the damage is done. Like, white just hurt their own king. White's probably developing the rook on a8, which was one of black's less good pieces. This rook doesn't have a way out. b5, queen c7, or wherever it goes, but like now there's a really good chance that at some point this rook develops, which there wasn't before. White trades, continues opening up, cranking open their own king by pushing this pawn. Now queen takes on c5, hitting the knight, knight retreats, knight c4. Yeah, so that was kind of like suicidal, right? White had 4 pawns in front of the king and just traded off 3 of them, sacked/traded 3 of them in 3 moves. Look how fast this happens. Here you've got 4 pawns in front of your king. You know, obviously the pawns aren't in a row. There's some room for black to try and play these kind of moves, but instead of waiting for black to organize their pieces and try and break open the white king, white decides to just hurry up and break open their own king, b5. There goes 1 traded on a6, 1 sacked on c5, second one sacked on c4. And oof. Now it's just going to be brutal from here to the end, I imagine. Okay. Another move that probably... Oh, you can't play rook b8 because of the bishop. That's why you're playing e5. I see. This move also looks good, but maybe there's some complications around the knight moving somewhere and attacking your queen. So instead, e5. Bishop e5 takes, check. Yeah, no more checks. Let me see if Dhruv had seen bishop takes e5 coming. Bishop takes e5, and Dhruv thought for 24 seconds. So maybe when you played e5, you were thinking about your ideas, not your opponent's, and you didn't actually calculate this move. And then, slightly fortunately, it wasn't a real problem. Who's going to win Tata Steel? Asks Lucas. Yeah, I think Gukesh and Noterbeck are the 2 players in the best form there, from what I can see. Oh look, we've got the folks from chess.com/24 coming in, so they're gonna know who's winning. Who's winning Tata Steel. Bonjour, Max. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our humble dojo here. We are watching games at a slightly lower level than what you have just been watching. This game ended with queen f5 check, bishop takes f5. Okay, fair enough. I did watch Gukesh's game today, so it was it looked really good to me. It looked really good. I didn't see all the other games. People have been asking me, like, what did I think of Aragaisi versus Warmerdam? I haven't seen the game. I feel bad for Arjun. I'm hurting. I'll check out the game later. Maybe Warmerdam played like a genius and it was a great moment. I don't know. But I haven't seen all the games. I have a job to do here, and my job is analyzing the games of non-super GMs today. You know, I would also gladly comment the games of super GMs, as I do occasionally. But one of the things that's, you know, a special focus in the dojo for anybody who's just joining us and doesn't know the dojo, one thing that's a special focus for us here is analyzing a lot of viewer games. So people from our channel might be 300, 700, 1300, 1700, all these levels. We like to look at their games very seriously. This is a tournament that we run pretty much every Saturday morning that we are looking at right now. So we can click on another live game now. Oh wait, this one's not from the tournament. Let me close that. And, you know, when we're looking at a game between players rated 900 and 1,000, we sort of try to analyze it at a 900 to 1,000 level, sort of what kind of comments would be useful for players of that level. When we look at a game that's played between two 1600s, we're going to try and talk about it at the level of 1600s. Yeah, so it's kind of a weekly thing we do. By the way, you are all welcome to join. Anybody who wants to player join, you're welcome to. The tournament's open to you. There are the links, right, to the 3 arenas. You can join them. They're open for another hour and a half or so, hour and 40 minutes. Here we've got Sully against Jedi Goat, probably playing a French defense. If I had to bet my life on it, I would try to avoid betting my life on such a thing. But it looks like a French defense. On the other hand, there's a knight trade here, but black still has the bishop, so it's not a winnower. But it's also not a Vienna game because white's pawn is still on f2, not f4. What opening is it then? Maybe a French where at some point white played e5 and black played knight e4? That's the easiest to imagine. Oh, I'm going to go look and see if I was wrong. Alyekhin's defense. I was wrong. Knight c3. There's the knight trade. And now we're in the French with d5. Good thing I didn't have to bet my life. See what I mean? It's not good to bet your life. Even if, you know, there's a field in which you're somewhat semi-expert and know some things, you don't want to bet your life. Like, imagine you're a particle physicist and you're like, I'm going to bet that the proton is over there. Yeah, I'll bet my life on where that proton is. Bad idea. Okay, so black's going for very aggressive play on the queen side in the early part of this game. And then also tries to counter white's king side. And we see Sully really unsure how to play this as white. You know, not really knowing what they're going for as far as I can tell. Trade on g4. Looks like black's going to be able to take this pawn on c3 at this point. And it won't be... I guess white's queen's going to try and come to a3 to collect it. If black goes for that. Okay. But yeah, black didn't want to give up this bishop. Didn't want this bishop to retreat either and like stop fighting for control of these squares. So black makes the trade. And they don't have to go take this. They can continue to leave that tension because they're nice and strong in this area here. Yeah, MG, I was also starting to wonder if, you know, white could maybe take on h6 with bishop or with knight. And Jedi was like, we're not going to wonder about that anymore. Okay, the other maneuver that would make sense would be to get this queen to g6 somehow, right? So queen e8, queen g6. That could make sense here. From g6, you tie white to the c pawn, you attack the g pawn. And just you're generally very active there. There's possibilities on the diagonal. That's what jumps to my mind for black here. Queen e8 to g6. But, like, let's say you're black and you're wondering if you can take this pawn. Okay, black goes for something else. If you're wondering about taking this pawn, one thing I would like you to be able to see is that this trade for white walks into queen b4. So I would love the player as white to recognize you don't have to trade just because the rooks are facing off, and you might want to start attacking these pawns while leaving the tension between the rooks on the open file. This is a typical trick for getting control of a file, is you move your queen out from in between the rooks before your opponent can. And if you're doing something else, like in this case threatening the c pawn, you know, sometimes your opponent will then take on b1 and concede the file for you to then go and try and defend what you're threatening. Now here the queen can't even get to the c pawn, so it looks pretty okay for black, honestly. For white, honestly, with this threat here. Maybe the very sneaky move, bishop here. Queen here, here. queen a4, and then weirdly just where? White's not threatening this pawn anymore because we actually chased the queen off of it. On the other hand, bishop f4 is coming next, taking the file from us. And this would really kind of just walk into it. Also, I have to keep my a pawn defended. I mean, if I want to be up a pawn. And finally, white could play queen c6 as well as bishop f4 next. So it's not easy to consolidate what I've got here. Huh. Okay, so bishop g5 is black's choice, which is weird because I would consider this the better bishop than this one. Black goes to trade it and at the cost of, doubling these pawns. And white says, if you want to trade it, I want no part of it, and buries this bishop even deeper within its pawn chain. And pushes forward aggressively. Wow. It's rapid chess, so they're down to 4 minutes. They have to play somewhat rapidly. It's hard to keep up with the, the positions and decisions when it gets this quick. But clearly that bishop on f6 is going to have to retreat. And maybe white's is going to come out here, so maybe black should go to d6. Yeah, and in the end, concretely, this bishop, it didn't get buried. I spoke somewhat disparagingly of it, but it's going to get out and be quite good on f4 and e5. So no damage done to white's position for the moment. Still looks very tense and, maybe close to equal between white and black. Hang in there, Lucas. You'll get a match. Which arena are you in? Folks, come play Lucas. Get a game. Lucas awaits. Bishop e7, bishop f4, bishop d6. Right, all makes sense. Under 1300 section. We got anyone under 1300? We've got Lucas looking for a match. Grabs the e-pawn. Beautiful. Beautiful, Sully. Oh my goodness. Wait, did you see how all this? I didn't see all this. Trading on g5. Well, trading on g5 might also have gotten the e-pawn. Hang on. I mean, if white did this, they could also have gotten the pawn maybe, right? That would have been simpler in a sense. This was a super complicated way to win the e-pawn. f4, bishop here, g. On second thought, the bishop should have just dropped back. I can see that now. Lucas is rated 476. So in particular, if we've got someone between like 200 and 600 or 700, Lucas would be a great match for you. It's 15 minutes plus 5-second increment. So now white collects that pawn. Dang, Sully looking strong, and suddenly 2 minutes ahead on the clock. 4 minutes against 2 is going to be a notable difference. Jedi Goat scrambling a little bit here. Now needs to come up with some counterplay against white's king, I would say, as white takes over the e-file. Maybe could also grab the pawn on c3 and see if white has an answer to it. But the bishop on d6 is hanging. It has to start with bishop f4, gf4. A minute and 20 on bishop takes f4. You better have planned your next move, because bishop takes f4 itself, that was, more or less obvious. Yeah, okay, so the next move was planned. Queen c7, looking for counterplay against f4, and beyond it, g3 and g1 is what black's got their eye on. Locks the queen out. Looking to double against the f-pawn. Lucas is against a 2000. Jeez. What is a 2000 doing in our under 1300 section? Hello? That's not what we were saying. We're not saying if you're over 2,000, join the under 1,300 group. Ay, ay, ay. Yes, the games are rated, Chess Pawn. They're rated on chess.com, you know, not on FIDE. Okay, back to our main game. So rook f7, queen e3. I think preparing to bring this rook to f1 in case of here. And if black doesn't go rook f8, maybe white's planning to go to e1 and, you know, use the e file to clobber black. Okay, there we get rook to f8, attacking the f pawn. Now, I mean, you know, in theory, white could take on b4 or take on d5. But my feeling is this king's pretty airy. We're not giving up this pawn. We have to keep the black pieces at bay, or it's going to get bad in a hurry for Sully's king. So I'm thinking rook f1 is forced, essentially, like the only good option here. All right, the queen looks for an angle to get in and also go after the f-pawn here. Boss Steven has a question. What if white sacked that and then went for checkmate? Would that potentially work? Dang. You're playing with fire, but I think your idea is fire. I think that works. That is yeah, good thinking, Boss Steven. I'm so conservative when low on time, I guess, when scrambling. All I'm trying to do is like keep the opponent away, keep them away. But yeah, sometimes you can just cut things off and finish the game, huh? Here, going after this, you could play f5. Rook f5, queen h3, just going for the same checkmate. Right? And they don't have time to take your stuff. Nice, Steven, nice. Okay, rook f1, queen d7, queen g3, keeping her out. Yeah, these are the kind of moves that I play in time scrambles, you know, just like the most solid defensive moves. g6. So Jedi Goat didn't want this pawn coming to g6. Had some fear or awareness of that idea. Well, good job, Skibix. We watched a game of yours. It was just really good. It was really good, so didn't have too much advice based on it. It was a French defense game with knight takes d5. It's the game that we watched in entirety. Queen f3, like a slightly risky choice because you give black the option of taking like this and then fishing for perpetual checks with the queen. Black goes rook h7, looking at the h file, rook h3 and stuff. This is still intense. Oh, but white's got queen d5 going to an endgame, right? Oh, too defensive. Stops rook h3. Like me, too defensive. This was probably very strong for white. Right? You're hitting this pawn. You're getting behind that one. You've traded queens. You've taken another pawn off the board. You can go after this one. Very strong chances that white's winning that endgame. Black's preparing another rook to h8. 30 seconds for Sully. The time advantage has disappeared on the last 3 moves as black comes up with some interesting threats of their own, and now basically it's just a scramble. White could look for rook e7, right? Doubling rooks on the e file could be a thought. This rook can't like easily come over again to go after this pawn. King g2 doubles instantly, putting pressure on White's clock. Jedi Goat can feel that Sully's control of the game has completely slipped away. Seconds left, and just resigns because they just can't come up with anything more to cover the king. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, that queen takes d4 thing was interesting for sure. All those accidental closings of our own browsers. Yeah, those can sting us. Wow, dramatic how the game switches from like super logical when we've got 5-10 minutes on the clock to panic mode. Well, in between panic mode, there's sort of like conservative, can I cover everything mode in the last 2 or 3 minutes, and then just absolute blind panic at the end. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. All right. Here we've got Mosasaurus. Could have been a good opponent for Lucas. DG Chess looking to attack White's king here. Knight comes into h3, and the rook's got some access to the second rank here. Bam, 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 bam. My kids are beating the war drums downstairs. It's exciting down there. I can hear it. I can tell. Boom, 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 boom. Love it. Lots of fun. Yeah, we got 3 sections. There's a good section for you too, Chess Pawn. It is going to be the third of these links. Maybe you can get in there and find a good game as DG Chess's queen comes swooping in here. Why can't I draw an arrow? There we go. Now, I had my eye on this bishop d5. And at first I thought of bishop d5 and then c4. Like, I guess I didn't notice pawn takes. Pawn takes is pretty good for black. And then it occurred to me to maybe like switch around my move order, play pawn takes pawn here, and then if white recaptures, then play here. That looks pretty good for black, right? Winning games and losing positions. Interesting. Could be better tactics than strategy, or bad openings. We get queen e3. I mean, she looks strong here. She's certainly trying to boss white. Bishop drops back, and that allows not only rook takes queen, but queen f3. Oof. You can take any break you want, G. Christensen. That's one of the nice things about arenas is you can play any number of games. You don't have to play a set number of games. And you can take breaks whenever you want to. Go get some, whatever. Stretch your legs or stretch your eyes. I've been staring at my computer screens too much lately. I've been forgetting to every 30 to 60 minutes, look off in some other direction. We hold these arenas essentially every Saturday, Chess Pawn, yeah. I don't know, maybe like 48 or 49 Saturdays out of a year. Every now and then there's something that gets in the way. Sometimes I move them half an hour earlier or later, although that hasn't happened in 4 or 5 months. But in theory, I reserve the right to move the arena half an hour earlier or later if it better fits my my schedule or someone else's schedule to do some commentary on it. Oh no, your opponent's just handed you a queen and a flag, huh? Interesting. Well, you must have done something to cause them to blunder or run out of time. You must have put some pressure on them, Paul, or given them some problems to solve. Yeah, you can just get a couple games exactly and then stop whenever you want to, pop in and out. I'm going to have to go in about 10 minutes or so to take one of the kids to dance class. The arena will continue for another hour after that till like 12:30, but I won't be able to do the full commentary. All right, Ali Moss, what's the benefit of a game with 600 elo difference? Wondering. In general, not so much. It's not the best. Much better to have players who are close in rating playing against each other. Plus or minus 200, I think, is a better range for having like really good matches. Let's check out Wyatt Winter against Gerard at Heart. We've got 2 knights against 2 bishops and opposite side kings. And White's much closer to the attack, right? With these pawns G4 and H4 ready to go. What White has to figure out here is like if you go G5 and they go H5, what do you do? Or if you go H5 and they go G5, what do you do, right? So that's what White had to figure out here. How do you really get something to stick? How do you come to grips with an opponent who's going to try and slip away? And how do you open a file for one of these rooks? They're hungry and they're ready. You know, White knew what files to put the rooks on, but now how do we open one of them up? So White tries H5, and Black is now thinking. In general, Ali Moss, if you know, there's no rule that you should never play somebody 600 points higher or lower. But the best games are going to be like plus or minus 200 points. If you're playing people 600 points higher or lower, just over the board at a chess club or in your life, in general, you should offer some odds, you know, like play with 1 less piece for the higher rated player so that it's not as much of a foregone conclusion. G. Christensen, the arena starts at the same, well, if you want to find out when the arena is, right? If you want to find out when the arena is, generally, it's basically the same time. It's been the same time every single week for 5 months now, okay? 9:30 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. As I said, I could move it a little bit earlier or later if I had to, but it's always at the same time. And if you go to the Chess Dojo Club, right, the club page, you can find upcoming events, and then you can see it that way. That's one way to see it. All right, let's get back to our game here, and then I'll give you a link, yeah. So a link to the training program is right here. On the website, there will be some info there about it. I can also, you know, very quickly answer any questions you have about it while doing the commentary here. Essentially, there's a different training program for every 100-point level in chess, right? So 300 to 400, 400 to 500, 500 to 600. We have an under 300 program, which covers from 0 all the way to 300. But after that, it's every 100 points up to 2,400 plus FIDE. So each plan is different, but has some similar elements of structure, right? Like each plan involves playing some games and analyzing them. But the time control that we would tell an 1800 to play is different than the time control we tell a 1000 to play, right? And the amount of time they should spend on the game and the amount of time analyzing and how many games they need to play is going to vary. But that would be like an example of a pillar that's going to be there at every level is playing games and then reviewing your games after you play them. All right, Gerard plays the key move, g5, avoiding a pawn trade. This was like 100% the move that white had to be prepared for. And look at Wyatt being prepared, playing knight takes g5 immediately. The time was spent making the decision with h5. The plan was in place. If black plays g5, we're sacking the knight to get our pawns rolling again towards this king and to open it up for attack, right? All right, good luck in your games. Lucas, sorry you got paired with some people further away from you in rating. It's unfortunate because we did have some other people. I saw somebody rated 300 and 500 in there. So I'm sorry that didn't work out better for you today. Timo, that painting is for my mom. And G. Christensen. So basically, the training program is going to be a task list. And let's say somebody's rating is 1150. The idea is that if that person does every single task in the 1100 to 1200 section, their rating will go over 1200. And then they can start working on everything in the 12 to 1300 group. And if they do all of that, their rating will go over 1300. So basically, it just should take all the decision making out of your chess. Yep, I'm coming. It should take all the decision making and hesitation and comparing resources out of your training program. Like, you just know, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and it'll all work out. You know? So that is what the training program is designed to do. All right. I think this sacrifice was a good choice by Wyatt. I'm going to leave this as my final thought with all of you as I leave you to play the tournament out. I think this was a very, very nice sequence played by Wyatt. Very instructive. Knight on g5 comes with tempo on this bishop. Black protects it. This pawn comes forward again. Now this bishop is sort of trapped here. The king is awkward, and maybe queen h2 would be crushing for white. White did play queen h2. Rook f6 trying to cover it. Knight e4 taking the rook. The game's still going. Black's managed to defend the first wave of white's attack. White throws more fuel on the fire. Wow. I mean, I was thinking about queen h6, and it's similar to knight f6. Your pawn's blockaded, so you come into these squares and try to force the issue. Yeah, if black takes that knight, they've got to be mated. Got to be mated. Clever. If king f6, there was queen f4. So the king comes here instead. The bishop on a2 is going to stop rook f7 winning the queen at the end of this line. Oh my lord. Supi Chi. The final level is 2400 plus FIDE. So the final level is like designed for basically people who are trying to become GMs or who are already GMs and trying to become stronger. So it goes all the way, basically. All right, folks, I got to take off. Wish everybody a great day. Yeah. Or a great evening, wherever you are. Let's just quickly send a raid, and then we'll go take our kids to and we'll take the kids to dance class. All right, raid.